Federal Lands and Water Resources meeting. We'll get started by taking roll. Go ahead, Clayton.
Senator Craigo.
Here.
Senator Love.
Here.
Senator McEwen.
Here.
Senator Pearson.
Here.
Chairman Ide.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay. Well, we've got two House bills on the docket here this morning. The first is House Bill 78, Forest Health Grant Program. Does anybody want to come up and get us kicked off?
This is a rough crowd. It'll be one of the easiest committees. Never mind.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Happy Tuesday for what it's worth. We bring for you today a House Bill.
Senator, would you go ahead and introduce yourself? And
Yes,
thank
yes,
you.
sir, Mr. Chairman. Did you guys take roll?
Yes, we did.
Oh, I was back there distracted. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senator Hicks, Senate District 11. Members of the committee, just a little background. This is some legislation we've worked on for a couple of years now. But more than anything else, I kind of want to set the setting for the stage. And Mr. Chairman, you know, you were down at the Forest Health briefing the other day. And one of the things that was absolutely striking to me was this, based on the latest aerial surveys of beetles and disease epidemic in the state of Wyoming. We're anticipating that roughly 26% of all of our forested lands in the state of Wyoming are currently infected and likely to be high levels of mortality over the next 15 years. We're talking tens of millions of acres of tendered fuel that's increasing, not decreasing. You know, one of the interesting things that we've seen, and I think you'll see testimony today, that the fact that when we do these fuel breaks and these thinning projects and stuff, they work, and they've worked in the last couple of years on the Elk Fire and the Mullen Fire to substantially reduce the cost and the loss of natural resources and infrastructure to the people of the state of Wyoming. When we look at this Forest Health Program grant, one of the things that's absolutely, I think, imperative to try to move this thing along is the fact that I've been involved in this arena for about 30 some years, and never have I seen the stars align from a situation that our federal partners are at the table. I know you guys have reviewed the Good Neighbor Authority. We're ramping this up. I believe the state forester can tell you, but we're doing over 50% of all the timber sales on the federal lands in the state of Wyoming, and we anticipate more. This is a tremendous opportunity to make hay when the sun shines. In my time in my career working in forestry and natural resources, I have a friend that's always coined the terminology that, for the most part, our efforts at the federal level have been prescribing a 1 acre solution to a 1 million acre problem. And consequently, that's led us to the point that we're at today because of mostly failed federal policy over the last 40 years. Let me give you an example of that. In 1980, the Medicine Bow National Forest harvested 44 million board feet of timber a year. The average annual growth on the Medicine Bow National Forest is 50 million board feet. At the end of the Clinton administration, we were harvesting 2.8 million board feet. And so the accumulation of just timber, fuels, logs, all this has been substantial. At the same time, we lost industry. In our neck of the woods, we had a sawmill in Laramie. We had a sawmill in Encampment. We had a sawmill in Saratoga. We had 3 up and running. Now Saratoga has come back, but we're sitting in a situation now where we have accumulated more timber and more fuels than we've ever had in the history of our national forest. This is an opportunity with the current administration we have, and the opportunity to go out and leverage dollars and Good Neighbor Authority to start solving this solution and prescribing much bigger acreages to the 1 million acre problem that we face. And so, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a modest attempt, but I think it's critical that we work with our federal partners, and the state forestry has a long history here with GNA now that ramping this up. I can tell you in my part of the state of Wyoming and the Sierra Madres, the level of timber harvest is unprecedented from a standpoint. We're back moving in the direction of actually managing a national forest in those adjacent state and private lands. So, Mr. Chairman, I can't understate the importance of when we have these opportunities that we need to maximize them. And so we bring before you guys today this Forest Health Grant Program. I'll have the forester walk through that with you, but it is a critical component of being able to move the state forward. But more than anything else, when you see the examples of how successful this can be and the ROI, the return on our investment, just on the firefighting and timber and the fuels management alone is about a 7-to-1 ratio. For every $1 we do reduce in fuels, we save $7 in suppression costs. That does not include the cost of lost agricultural production when your permittees are not able to turn out because their allotments are burned up, the lost timber harvest, some of the other, the cost of fuel. So this could be a tremendous savings to the state of Wyoming. I think if anything, is pertinent, as the old saying is, a stitch in time saves 9. It's a good investment on our dollars, and we have an opportunity to do things that we haven't had in the past, working with our federal partners to solve this solution. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to turn it over to State Forester Norris.
Okay, good morning, Chairman Ide.
Yeah.
Senate Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Waters Committee member. My name is Kelly Norris, and I'm the Wyoming State Forester. Thank you for your time today to discuss House Bill 78, the Forest Health Grant Program. Even though the title is grant program, this is a cost share program. It is set up that up to 75% is cost shared on state, local, and private lands, and up to 50% on federal lands using the Good Neighbor Authority program. So Wyoming is considered the headwaters state, meaning our forests hold the headwaters to the Colorado, the Missouri, and Columbia rivers, as well as the headwaters to the Great Salt Lake, providing water to millions of people downstream. Protecting and restoring the source of Wyoming's water, specifically managing Wyoming's biggest reservoir, our snowpack, is an increasingly urgent priority for Wyoming citizens, agriculture, wildlife, and recreation. Our federal forests need to be managed to reduce wildfire impacts and effects, and so does Wyoming's 2.5 million acres of state and private forested lands. In October 2024, the Elk Fire burned about 98,000 acres across municipal watersheds in the Sheridan area, as well as Dayton and Ranchester. Total cost for the suppression efforts was about $48 million, but the long-term costs and impacts on the municipal water, to the irrigators, ranchers, wildlife, and recreation are yet to be known. The top priority for the protection during the Elk Fire was the municipal water facilities. This is because Sheridan, the 6th largest city in Wyoming, has no backup water source for water that comes off the Bighorn Mountains, and has only one municipal water facility that the municipal water is treated and pumped through. The active forest management that was completed on state trust lands became a significant means to stop the Elk Fire. As the fire came barreling out of the Tongue River Canyon, the fire burned into State Forestry's past harvest units and a large aspen enhancement project that was completed in coordination with Wyoming Game and Fish and the U.S. Forest Service. This is where the fire stopped and saved 3 state leased cabins, wildlife habitat, and essential grasslands for grazing and operations. The management that was completed on state lands resulted in lower suppression costs because there was no need to call that large air tanker in to put retardant down around those cabins. There was no need to call in that heavy dozer to get a blade line around those cabins, around that infrastructure. And there was no need to bring in a whole nother crew to try and do the mop up on those lands. So if only the rest of that forest would have been managed that same way, how different the Elk Fire would have looked in the end. State Forestry has implemented projects similar to this, what's proposed in this bill years ago when the Wyoming legislature invested in forest management to help with the mountain pine beetle epidemic in the Black Hills. The result of this investment is now paying off, as these live and healthy Wyoming Black Hills forests have become the backbone timber supply for the local Wyoming mills, keeping them in business, providing jobs and an economy to Crook and Weston counties. Historically, the funds used for this important management work were placed in the emergency fire suppression account. This bill would create an account detached from the emergency fire suppression account, keeping fire suppression costs separate from active forest management work. And I've provided each of you a handout about this landscape scale project that was invested in the Black Hills. When federal funding is available and awarded to state forestry, we implement a cost share program similar to this proposed bill and expect to implement this program without needing increased staffing. The funds we receive from the U.S. Forest Service are typically from competitive grants, which are focused practices and lands where those funds can be used on, and they're federal priorities rather than Wyoming's. This bill is an incredible opportunity to be much more strategic in completing cross-boundary projects and gives us an ability to leverage funds from other funding sources, including from the Good Neighbor Authority program, as Senator Hicks said. On March 1st, 2025, President Trump signed that Executive Order 14225, immediate expansion of the American timber production. And on August 1st, 2025, Governor Gordon signed Executive Order 2025-04, increase of active forest management in Wyoming. State Forestry taking both of those executive orders very seriously, and this bill supports the implementation and desires of the national and state forest management policy. Lastly, studies have shown that prevention work, such as forest management, does reduce severity in wildfires and increases the efficiency of suppression efforts. As Senator Hicks said, for every dollar spent on hazardous fuels mitigation, the return on investment is anywhere from $4 to $7 in suppression saving costs. That means in this bill, when implemented, will save us up to $21 million in wildfire suppression costs to Wyoming and our communities. Support for prevention efforts is particularly strong in the West, when wildfire occurs frequently and causes most of the damage. And with that, I will stop there. I want to thank you for your consideration on improving and increasing forest management in Wyoming's forests, and stand for any questions that the committee may have for myself or Senator Hicks.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just had one question in this bill. On page 2, line 19. So when it says private land there shall be necessary in the public interest, does that mean that through this bill that even if a private landowner doesn't want something done on their private land, that you can go in because it is a public interest?
Do you want me to answer?
Go
I
ahead.
can kick us off. Chairman, Senator, no, we cannot do that. In order for this project work to be done, it'll be done through either state agencies or local governments, and that has to be agreed upon in contract, and contract landowner agreements are typically go into place and get approved through the AG's office prior to us doing actual contractual work on any lands.
Thank you.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you're doing something on private land, does the private landowner get paid for the timber that goes away, or is it just kind of a, we're doing this because we like you, we're from the government?
Go ahead, Senator Hicks.
So, Mr. Chairman, there will be a whole range of things, and particularly when we start dealing in the fuel arena, most of the times there's not enough timber to pay for the cost. It's not a timber sale. Timber sales are designed for timber industry to make money off of. Fuels projects are designed to get back to the protection of those resources. And so what we oftentimes end up with what used to be called a below cost timber sale. In other words, the timber doesn't pay for it. Now, so if we're dealing with state or private land, obviously we want to get as much merchantable materials off there as absolutely possible. It makes no sense to waste. a valuable product. So what typically happens on these is there's some level of, so if the timber off the property pays for 25% of the cost, that would be the landowner's contribution. They're not going to make money off these things, the vast majority of them. Otherwise, they'd have already done, or they would be working with state forestry to do a timber sale off state lands. And so what we ended up with, what we call as a below cost. In other words, the timber itself will not pay for the project. And that's consequently, well, we're focusing on a cost share program. And so the only way to effectively treat this stuff is we have to come in there and provide that additional cost to implement these projects. So I hope that answers your question.
Other questions, committee? I have a quick one. And I've asked this before. What, supply and demand for the timber and the lack of the mills that we've, sort of through various administrations have slowly migrated away from the business. First question is, what is the merchantable product? And number two, is there a demand now that we've got supply more so than we've had in the past? How do you, is the demand there, and what is that product is the question. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so we do have a product, but that product, depending on where it's located, is actually no longer becomes a true product. It becomes a cost. Instead of saying it's a commodity, almost in some ways becomes a challenge for us when we look at fuels and our forests and snowpacks and mitigation work. So think about the price of diesel. Think about what it takes really to run machinery and then get that timber out of the woods. We don't grow as tall and straight of trees in our mountains as places like Idaho and Montana. And so there is a cost to all of that work to get that work done. And with that, we have a few places in Wyoming where we can actually say this is valuable merchantable timber. Otherwise, we're doing what Senator Hicks is talking about and saying there's some value here, but it's got to offset all the costs that it's going to take to get this work done on the ground. When it comes to additional, what you're talking about is markets too, right? Different types of markets with different types of material. As we look to increase active management on the ground, I think there is true opportunity to see new and inventive markets created off of this smaller diameter timber that we're talking about trying to manage on the forest.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can chime in on that.
Sure.
So part of the market that we see, and then at least in my area, we still have one active sawmill. So we high grade the good stuff and it's going to the sawmill. But because money's all going to go back into the private sector, we also support that industry that supports the sawmill. In other words, we have people that have made investments back into equipment, particularly for some of the fuels work like masticators and work like that. What we've seen in our areas is a number of what we would call traditional oil field contractors with the downturn in the oil and gas industry for the last decade go out and retool with buying some of this specialized equipment. They're clearing power lines, they're doing wildlife habitat work, they're doing fuels work with fuels reduction on BLM land. So any money that we come out of this is going to go right back into the private sector, whether it's for contractors to actually perform the below cost sale or to support those people that are trying to get out there and work in the woods, some of the loggers that may not have enough work. But we're seeing a little bit of reinvestment by our contractors over there in that part of the state to pick up this fuels work, because so much, getting back to my initial statements, we're looking at millions of acres of dead timber and fuel loads coming here in the next decade. It's going to get worse, not better. And so we're retooling to do that. And so this program is going to support the private sector and help generate and maintain a workforce, I hope, for those sawmills so they have some working opportunity. And in the slow times in the oil and gas industry, bridge that with the diversification within that private sector contractor world. And that's what we're seeing in our area. Because this is a west-wide problem. We've got guys working in 3 states that bought some of the specialized equipment now that are doing power line cleanings. And so it supports a private sector and a diversification here in the state of Wyoming.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually worked in 2 logging camps, one outside of Tie Siding into the Colorado border and another one in Beaufort, Colorado, out down by Meeker. Yeah. Good business. We need to ramp it up. Thank you for your testimony.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman, just.
Senator McEwen has a question here real quick.
You have to help me out with this one too. Is what's left quality enough to go to, say, a paper mill or something of that nature instead of 2x4s?
Go ahead.
Yes, Chairman, Senator, yes and no. Again, remember where it's located. We have lost our mills in this state. We have mills in the Black Hills area up by Hewlett. We have a mill, a pretty large mill down in Saratoga. And then we have mills over in Uinta County, outside of Evanston and in the Bridger Valley that are very active. And then we have small mills across the state. So the transportation to get the product is what's killing the product being valuable, right? If you cut something in the Bighorns and it has to go to Livingston, Montana, it's 300 miles, 340, I believe, one direction to take that log truck. Now, if it goes to Rapid City or Sundance, it's still 300 some miles from the Bighorns to that mill. So what we're seeing is, yes, there is absolute value in that product, but what this is going to help do is supplement that transportation cost that's associated with getting that product to that mill.
So, Mr. Chairman, just specifically to Senator McEwen's question, we don't have any infrastructure to create paper here in the state of
know.
Wyoming. Why some of it's suitable. One of the things that we deal with is when I talked about 44 million to 2.8 million. These are very cost expensive factory or, manufacturing to set up. And given the wild fluctuations in federal policy, 40 million to 2.8 million, nobody's willing to make that investment because of the historic lack of access to that federal timbers. It's just not good business sense. So, consequently, the business model has changed from big investment to trying to just survive. And what we're hoping to do with this program is help them survive. And maybe if we see the overall trend with the federal government turning, that we have the let's call it the skeleton of an industry that we can go out there and start to build out. Chairman Ide, you remember the discussion we had there is, we need certainty.
Right.
We need 80,000 acres under contract before we're going to make a significant investment into new mills and manufacturing and stuff like that. And we talked about those tools. What would that take? And so at least right now, I think the Forest Service and at the national level, Congress is looking at maybe providing some of those opportunities, but it has to have a guaranteed supply of the feed material. And without that, there just won't be that large scale investment back into it.
And I'll follow up to our largest product that we sell in Wyoming is firewood. So right now it would be typically, so I started my career in northern Minnesota in the paper product area, and it was typically live timber. We have what we're harvesting right now is significantly dead timber. Some of it is, almost 2 decades old now. Right? If you think about the Uintas, you think about the Medbo, in some of those places, even the Bridger Teton. So we're a little ways away from paper, but there is other products I think we're still working towards. And as Senator Hicks talks about, it's trying to get that supply available and accessible. And right now on the national level, there's quite a bit of promise when it comes to the roadless rule being rescinded and taking a hard look at all of that holds 3.2 million acres of Wyoming forests locked up. if things change on why, specifically in some of our forests, such as the Bighorns and the Bridger Teton, there could be some real opportunities for restoration work ahead of us to be, again, looking at how we can bring back that opportunity of supply.
Yeah, follow, go ahead.
So once again, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. It's kind of new to me. What do we do with, I guess you'd call it deadfall or
Hmm.
different names, after we cut it down, our crooked trees? What do we do with it?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that typically becomes firewood and firewood sales. If it's big enough to put on a log truck, it's coming down the forest and it's going, there's actually interesting in the basin and around surrounding Shoshone, the Bridger Teton, and the Bighorns, there's quite a bit of a firewood market there, commercial firewood market. And so that's where that would go, is on the commercial firewood markets. And otherwise, it'll go, if it's not big enough to end up on a log truck, it will either go to a wood pile, or go to a pile to be burned or masticated through mastication if it's a restoration project as well. So there's different opportunities depending on the project.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to kind of give you an idea that there was, we did a large project with some private landowners and also the Forest Service on the west slope of the Sierra Madres. And so we hired a contractor, we being actually through GNA with State Forester. And what they did is when they harvested those logs, they'd segregate them out. So the quality stuff that still was greener or could go to the sawmill was put in this deck. They come in and limbed them and put them on a truck. The other stuff went to a large pile and it was burned. And so, because we don't have the firewood market on the west slope of the Sierra Madres. So this winter, they've been burning over 1,100 piles. And these are not piles, these are log decks, but it's non-merchantable timber. And so we've got to get rid of that fuel and clean that forest up. That's our grazing, that's our wildlife habitat, that's our fuels reduction. And it increases our water yield substantially by getting rid of that material. But it's a lot of this is just going to be burnt, but it's going to be in a setting where it's been harvested, decked and controlled. And, I mean, you could literally see smoke rolling off of the forest last month because of all the decks that they were burning on the national forest and some of the private land up there. But we've got to manage that fuel load.
And I'll add to this for Senator McEwen. Think of it this way. I have a district forester who always explains it to landowners this way. In the last multiple decades, we've been suppressing wildfire. So, but then we fired the cleaning lady. We stopped cleaning the forest when we started doing what was happening, right? We went from harvesting half the forest, right? And then we stopped for the last, I don't know, couple decades. And so this is now time to start cleaning out that forest again and bringing back the cleaning lady. And that's basically how we explain it is we have a real situation on our forests and it's time to start taking care of them because it's causing some major, we're seeing it with these fires that have been rolling off these forests coming into our communities. It's time to start trying to take investing in that work because it will, and it's been proven the ROI on it, that it will save us in wildfire suppression costs. It's going to save our grasses. It's going to save our wildlife. It's going to save our homes. And so it's time to start working together with our federal partners to get some of this work done.
Thank you. Senator Love.
Chairman, I through you.
Mhm.
This is more of a comment than a question, I guess. I've toured the Black Hills a number of times. I used to go and tour when I worked for the state. I'd tour with Brad Enzi and his crew when we had a little more activity on the forest, 30 years ago. If you've toured the Black Hills in the last 10 years, you will see the piles that they're talking about. The forest itself is gorgeous. And they put these piles in a location where they can either be harvested for firewood or burned in the appropriate conditions. And so our fuel load, because of the pinewood beetle kill that came through several years ago, has gotten so tremendous in some of these areas when we have large wildfires. It actually goes through and just chars the ground to the point that it sterilizes a lot of the ground. And then we have a real hard time recovering that ground until it builds the microbes back in the ground that do the work. And so by doing this, you can at least, if a fire were to come through, keep the fire in the canopy instead of on the ground where it's going to cause the most damage to the ground. And so this is actually a very, very good project and something that'll help our forests, as they've said, our wildlife and other things. So, and I would assume that that's what we're looking at, is a very similar project.
Go ahead, Ms. Norris.
Chairman, Senator, absolutely. That's exactly it. And again, this is really focused, first and foremost, I think, it came out of Select Water for the snowpack and thinking about how we can do exactly what we're talking about, forest health, having thinning, holding that snowpack. Because if we have a wildfire that's burned over our forests and we can't get the seed source back in somewhere like Ponderosa pine in the Black Hills that is super dependent on the actual tree being alive and providing a seed source, then too, we're going to lose our snowpack because there's no shading left in those landscaped areas to hold that snow there anymore. So it's incredibly important work that we're talking about.
Thank you, Ms. Norris. Okay, thank you for your testimony. Just, okay, thank you, Senator Hicks. Just remind everybody in here, we do, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got to be out of here by 9:30 or 9:25 to get to it. So yeah, we've got an hour here approximately. So anybody else want to come up and talk about forest? Come on up. Everybody line up right there. We'll try to get through y'all quick. Whoever wants to start, go ahead and state your name and where you're from, and we'll move on.
Chairman Hyde. Committee. I am Brent Godfrey. I'm the county fire warden and fire chief out of Bighorn County. I lived in the town of Hyattville, which is at the base of the Bighorn Mountains, and my dad was a logger. And they used to clear cut in the bighorns in sections, which back 50, 60 years ago, we had fire breaks, we had clean areas, we had new tree growth. Well, all that's gone away. It's starting to get overgrown and everything. So if we could get back in the national forest and clean up and clear cut some of these areas and get us some fire breaks, where all the people that are building their cabin to be in the beauty of the mountains, it helps us with our WUI. It helps with any major fires. You know, the elk fire was the perfect example of something wiping out a lot of our lumber and trees. You know, we've had some private individuals do the mitigation that Kelly and the Senator were talking about. Last year, we had a lightning strike in one of these mitigated areas, and the fire only grew to about a 0.5 acre. And we were able to get on it, get it snuffed out, instead of having a major forest fire. So the mitigation, not only for the watershed and that, our fire end of it, trying to keep fire small and everything, it's a major part of it. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the committee? Thank you. Go ahead, whoever's next.
Mr. Chairman, Committee, Chris Coker. I'm here representing the Wyoming Fire Chiefs and the Rural Fire Association. I am the Washakie County Fire Warden and the Worland Fire Chief. In regards to fire suppression, this past summer, Washakie County, we had 3 emergency fire suppression account fires in Washakie County. In serving as an incident commander on several fires in that area this summer, and then as an agency administrator on several of the FSA fires. Working through this program with state forestry and our federal partners, it allows for early work to be accomplished. So we can look at shaded fuel breaks as a whole, because as we get sprawl of folks moving out into the rural lands, it becomes more and more difficult to provide safety for wildland urban interface. So as we do that, how do we protect the folks that live in the area? How do we protect their investments? And how do we protect our firefighters? Well, firefighting is an inherently dangerous job. That nobody would disagree with that. However, there's occasions where it becomes a point where we just don't even have a point to start. It becomes an untenable, an unwinnable position. So by having to spread and move out into further areas, making it a big box, we do potentially damage to the ecosystem in the aspect that we are having to relegate an area that we could have possibly saved with fuel mitigation ahead of time. And now we're losing grazing land because we're having to wait until we can get, 2-3 ridges over, because that's the only way we can access to fight with it. So if we lose 2 more ridges, we have ranchers that are now losing grassland for their animals. And we have to look at all of those risks. What is the risk and what is the value of what we're fighting and what we're losing? So the Spring Creek fire this past summer was one of the emergency fire suppression accounts that I spoke of. We actually had opportunities where there was some significant mitigation along the BLM and private lands area. And it's happened over approximately the past decade. That was one of the areas that we were actually able to catch the fire and put line in and stop it in that area. Had we not had some mitigation there, there was no way in the drainage that we were in that we would have caught it. We would have lost another tens of thousands of acres. And at the end of the day, the emergency fire suppression account would have costed that additional millions of dollars. So a little bit of land preparation ahead of time certainly is huge savings cost in suppression, firefighter safety, and homeowner and ranching safety for our constituents of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who's next? Commissioner North, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Dave North. I'm a commissioner out in Natrona County, and the WCCA also supports this bill. But there's so many aspects of it that we look at as far as multiple use and management. The wildlife is part of it. I mean, every one of us have been affected by wildfire in this state. I mean, you look at the fires on Union Pass and out of Jackson, you look at Casper Mountain, it's burned twice and is a tinderbox right now. You look at the Black Hills, you look at different areas all the way around the state. And part of the problem that we've had is our federal government not supporting the logging industry and not supporting the fire suppression that needs to be out there. Part of what we run into is, in the 70s, we had some of the healthiest forest in the country. And it was because of logging. And it also helped our wildlife. It helped our water. It helped everything all the way across the board. With the increase in costs that are associated with fire suppression, the dangers that are associated, and the undergrowth that's associated with part of the hottest fires we had. I worked up in the Teton Wilderness after the fires in 1988. Talking about how it scorches and kills the microbial activity that's there, and it takes a long time for those plants to come back. That's just a minor part of it. Looking at the protection of our homes, in the different areas, the increase in insurance costs that are associated with not being able to clear things around our area. This is something that would be beneficial to all of that. It would also be beneficial to get rid of some of that undergrowth and thin out some of the areas, especially in areas where you have lodgepole pine and other things that are actually, as one of my professors used to call a lodgepole pine forest, an ecological desert, because it looks good on the top, but there's nothing that grows underneath. By going in and being able to thin that, you eliminate some of that overgrowth that's in there, and it allows that sun to come through to benefit everything. But it also holds the snow better, you know, and it benefits the wildlife and everything else. So I just wanted to let you know that we do support this. I think this is important for the entire state, not just for one or two counties, but I think it's important for the entire state and for the citizens of the state as far as what we have out there and the insurance and everything else that goes along with that. And with that, I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner North. Well, go ahead, Senator Lowe.
Thank you, Chairman, through you. You touched on something there that I guess I've had to deal with a little bit in the last year. Up between Glendo and Douglas, we've got a property that we had been building and working on, lodge and cabins, and they are almost impossible to get insurance right now because of the fire designations throughout the entire West. It's changed everybody's abilities. I know several of my properties have gone up. At some, it's almost impossible to find insurance for.
Right.
How widespread is that in your communities?
It's across the state. It's going to be worse and worse. And I know the individuals here that are currently, I have worked on fires, on wildland fires, and I've worked as fire chief. So that is something that's coming from the insurance companies all the way across the board. If you can't go in there and suppress those fires and you can't do that, they're looking for excuses, especially after everything that happened in California, to cancel our insurance. This helps providing that access. And everything you do that increases that access and that availability for fire suppression is going to make a difference as far as our insurance goes. And that is a real possibility and a real problem that we've got with this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Director, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Angie Bruce, Director of Wyoming Game and Fish. And I found it very interesting this morning to hear about all the secondary benefits of doing forest health programs and planning and active management. And I just want to point out that I really appreciate page 3, that there's also the opportunity for this grant funds to have that dual benefit for wildlife habitat. Quality wildlife habitat is essential in this state if we want to maintain healthy populations. We work actively across the landscape with our federal and state partners every day to put wildlife habitat improvements on the ground. One specific project over in the Wyoming range are mule deer, a very iconic mule deer herd across the West. We've been working for 14 years with our federal partners to do forest health programs, invasive species control, wet meadow restoration. These type of projects benefit the forest health, but also we see great benefits to wildlife as well. We spend about, working with federal partners last year alone, $14 million on habitat projects, and this gives us another funding source to see those dual benefits. So with that, I'll just stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Questions? Well, thank you all for coming and testifying. That was very informative. Thank you. So there again, I'll just kind of reiterate, so we get everybody's bills through, keep your comments brief, and we'll try to move on and get both of these bills out of here today, potentially. Thank you. Go ahead, whoever's ready to get started. You got the...
I'll jump in then. My name is Clint Bassett. I'm with the City of Cheyenne Board of Public Utilities. I represent water industry and watershed protection as part of this bill. I've had the opportunity of working with several forest remediation projects across 3 mountain ranges in southeast Wyoming. And I have found that, yes, the projects that the material that can come off of the forest that make money, those are easy. The projects that don't offset the costs because of high slopes limited access, maybe some sensitive vegetation. And when I talk sensitive vegetation, that can even be lodgepole pine. Lodgepole pine, if you are leaving some standing, you need to leave groups of it because our winds can push them over. So they actually need the support of other trees around them. Those types of projects need some additional help. And that's what this bill does. It helps get those projects done. And the beauty of the bill is the state's not doing this alone. It requires others to become partners with the state. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the success, is where groups of people come together for the benefit of of our forests. And this bill allows us to do that. So I'm proud of the support that this bill has received so far, and I encourage you to continue to support it.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Mr. McGagnon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim McGagnon with the Wyoming Stockgrowers Association. I've often heard it said that $1 spent on forest management saves $100 that needs to be spent on fire control and recovery. For a rancher, I would say the number is much different. $1 spent on forest management can save literally thousands of dollars that those ranchers have to spend to replace infrastructure, buy hay and everything else that's associated with a fire that destroys the habitat that they depend on a forest or elsewhere. So that's critically important to us to see efforts that address this up front. The other thing I would point out is that this bill recognizes the broader benefits of this. When we talk about forest management, we far too often just think about timber and how are we going to manage timber, how are we going to get rid of dead timber. One of the keys to good forest management, whether it's on private, state, or public land, is livestock grazing, because it keeps that undergrowth down, which is the critical element of spreading fires. They spread not through the treetops as often as they do through the undergrowth. And what we're seeing in places in Wyoming is that through lack of forest management, the down timber in that has become so severe that the livestock can no longer get into those areas to perform that critical service of harvesting that undergrowth. So it's clearly a benefit to do that together. Just to mention one other item, the issue about private lands, and we're pleased that private lands are included in here, because when you're managing forest, you have to manage a unit, and that unit may include federal lands, private lands, state trust lands. By being able to look at all of it together and direct some of these dollars to where it manages that entire unit, because there is a public benefit. There's clearly public benefit from keeping our private lands appropriately managed so that fire from there doesn't spread to the public lands, and so that wildlife habitat is there. So it all ties together. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we think this bill does an outstanding opportunity of recognizing those broader benefits to forest management, and we fully support the bill as it is.
Thank you, Mr. McGagnon. Go ahead.
Era Arano, Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. Our members have policies specifically saying we encourage private landowners, state and public land organizations to collaborate in actively managing forested areas with the intention of increasing water yield and enhancing forest health. That is exactly what this bill does. As the previous speaker mentioned, the cross-boundary nature of it is unique and very important because fires don't respect boundary, watersheds don't respect land ownership boundaries. With our goal of fire prevention and increasing water yields, anything we can do to continue to support this, do let us know. On a personal note, I heat with wood at home, and so I can speak that there is indeed a firewood industry in our state, and there's also recreational benefits to this. When we have, which is a growing industry in our state, when we have big fires, because we can't control things at that interface, that impacts all of our industries across the state. Thank you. I stand for questions.
Thank you. We'll go to questions after everybody's finished here, and you can hit them if anybody has any. So go ahead, Mr. Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, and I've also been asked by the Association of Conservation Districts. They had to be across the hall, but to show their support for this bill as well. And I'm not going to reiterate all the positive comments. I want to say three things that are so great about this bill. It's preventative. We're using money and tools to prevent another problem. It's proactive. We're going to work to get ahead of something. We're going to stop or at least reduce a problem. And it's also an investment. not just for private lands, but public lands, not just for ag, not just for recreation, not just for wildlife. It's for everybody. So sitting in firm support of this bill to show ag unity, along with the conservation district speaking for them today, I just want to leave you with this adage: you graze it, you log it, or you burn it. This will keep us from having to burn it or letting it burn up. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would sit for any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Mullane. Committee. Thank you very much, you all. Sorry, we're trying to move along a little quicker, but we appreciate all your testimony. I wish we had all day to talk about it, but yeah. Anybody else from the gallery that wants to speak online?
Yeah, this is Caleb Carter. I'm here representing the Weston County Natural Resource District, and I'll keep my comments brief, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I think the one thing that I would add to the comments here, and I would support what has been said. I think the other aspect, looking at this from the Conservation District side as an entity that would apply for these funds and work with State Forestry to put these projects on the ground here in the Black Hills of Wyoming, is the unique opportunity that this grant funding would provide to then turn around and leverage funding from other federal sources or other NGOs such as Mule Deer Foundation, Muley Fanatics, Rocky Mountain Elk, and so on. These entities are very interested in supporting forest health work, but their funding requires match. And typically they're looking at their funds being considered project expansion grants, if that makes sense. So they're looking for an entity that already has funding for a project. They can then match their funding to that and expand the scope of that project. And so the real benefit of having this money is it's would be able to be utilized to leverage additional funds to expand this effort even more. So that would be the one comment I would add. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the committee? Appreciate your testimony. Thanks for being here today. Anyone else online? Okay, bring them in. Clayton.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate you allowing me to testify virtually today. I'm actually in an office in Washington, D.C. today. So I've missed a lot of the testimony. I had to step out of a meeting here, so I'll keep this short. But House Bill 78 is an important piece of legislation for the forest products industry. There have been fire hazard reduction strategies in place for decades, and the forest products industry is how that work gets done on the ground. That also creates a very symbiotic relationship that benefits companies by producing raw material that they produce into boards, posts and poles, and other forest products that we use it every day in this country. House Bill 78 represents an excellent opportunity to make that investment to lowering fire suppression costs, benefiting the forest, benefiting forest products companies, and the communities that they support. We've enjoyed strong support on House Bill 78 coming out of the House. I hope you find the same vote today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the committee? Appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is that it online? Okay, I guess we'll, I know Senator Hicks had an amendment. Maybe we'll move the bill and then bring that up for further comment on that, if that works for committee. Committee, been moved by Senator Love, second by Senator Pearson. Discuss the bill and any amendments. Go ahead, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I've got a couple amendments. Many of these are cleaning up and just streamline the bill. So one of the first ones I'd like to have you look at is on page 2. Line 17, 18, and 19. And first, let me describe what it does. We've said the funding under this section shall be conducted on state, federal government, local government, or private land. Well, that's all the land in the state of Wyoming. And so, Mr. Chairman, what I would like to suggest is that we insert an amendment in there, but let me first give you an idea of why. If you go over to the next page and you go to page 4, and you go down to subsection D, and it says no forest health grant shall be made under this section without written opinion of the Attorney General clarifying the legality of the grant documents, et cetera, et cetera. That's in there because of what we call the contract clause, and we're not supposed to lend our money or credit to private corporations. And so this was something that we don't need in here from a standpoint. If we go back and we make an amendment in there and say that the grants will still be to governmental entities, it gets around, and it's not a get around. If this is what we do with exactly with the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust and some of these others, is these grants go to governmental entities. The reason that we do that is so it's your rural fire districts, your counties, your conservation districts, could be other potential federal partners. The reason we do that is so the private sector people can go out there and work. So what would normally happen is you'd have a conservation district apply for a grant. They're going to manage a project in concert with state forestry, but that money's all going to the private sector. They can't take anything out of here for administrative expenses. So if we just get rid of that language in there and just put in there that these grants will only go to governmental entities, then doesn't have to go to that whole review process with the attorney generals. It's just a contract, just like we do with the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund. So, Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest we do is go on line 3 and strike requiring the attorney general to approve
Excuse me,
grants.
Senator Hicks, which page are you
On
back?
page 1, and when you
Okay.
go into the title, on line 3,
Okay,
just strike requiring the attorney general to approve grants. So page 1, line 16, you would strike attorney general approval down there. And then if we go over to page 2, line 18, strike conducted on state, federal government, local government, or private lands, and then insert to governmental entities and. So that will now read, funding under this section shall be to governmental entities and shall be necessary in the public interest and shall be designed to accomplish one or more of the following. So
quick question on that, Senator Hicks. What, when you said the whole state of Wyoming earlier, state, federal government, local government, or private land, what about reservation land?
they're still those are still under the control of some governmental entity.
Okay, just wanted to
And
clarify
this-
that.
This wouldn't preclude tribal lands to be included in
Okay.
that. So we're just saying to be, so that this section these grants or these program funds will go to governmental entities and shall be necessary in the public interest. That gets away from that contract clause where we would be awarding these funds to private sector companies. Keep in mind, it's just a pass through. It simplifies it for the private sector companies and expedites the projects on the ground versus to have that whole other step. Now, keep in mind, you're still going to sign a contract and the AG's office reviews those contracts, just like they do with Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund, just like they do with water development, small water projects. It's just not reviewing the grant, they're just reviewing the contract. That's all that does, but it will speed the process up of actually getting the money deployed and out onto the ground. So, Mr. Chairman, that would be the First Amendment. What I'd suggest the committee may want to take these. I've got one other cleanup. So as part of that amendment, you would want to go into on page 4 and you just delete subsection D.
I'm sorry, go ahead and mention that one again.
So on
Senator Hicks.
page 4,
Yes,
you would delete subsection D.
okay.
All 3 of those tie together, Mr. Chairman, so one doesn't work without the other.
Committee, comments, discussion on Senator Hicks' proposed amendment. Go ahead, Senator Love.
Legal minding, this is this meeting institutions requirement, we take the AG out of it?
Go ahead, Senator Craig.
Mr. Chairman. It can, I'm just not sure we want to. I mean, I'm a little nervous we're gonna narrow the program to a point where it's not. If we take that language out, that's showing intent on our purpose, for our purposes, and the AG may look at that when we start reviewing contracts, and they may dig in a little bit harder on where's the money going? Is it? I understand the intent. We're trying to streamline the process, but I'm not sure we're actually gonna do that. They still have to review every contract that goes out the door anyways. I'm just not sure it's gonna be worth the squeeze, and we might be hurting ourselves because some of this is gonna happen on private property. I mean, especially checkerboard type circumstances, I'm not sure we want to take it out. I understand the intent and I applaud the intent, but we might be doing more damage than good. I don't know. This is one we might want to think about before we do it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's.
Go ahead,
fine.
Senator.
I did run this past our legal staff with LSO and that's in there for that specific reason. This would make it almost consistent exactly what we do with the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund. And many of those dollars are going out on the private land. I mean, we're putting out $8 million a year through that program. That's just state funding, not alone all the other contributed funding. This is consistent with the small water program that you hear, that the rehab and the new construction. Those entities apply, they're awarded the fund, and then they sign a contract that goes through the AG's office and has to have that signature on. So this is just conforming to what we do with the small water project program, the way we implement the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund. But Mr. Chairman, if the committee's a little uncertain, I'd say just set that aside. I can bring it with the committee of the whole amendment and work with Senator Crago and our staff to get that resolved.
Go ahead, Senator Craig.
Mr. Chairman, I'm pretty sure the paragraph D is in our large project funding bill. There's language similar to that every year when we pass large project funding, but
Mr. Chairman, I would say just because of your time constraint, let's just set that aside and we'll work on that amendment. The other two amendments, Mr. Chairman, in the bill is one of them is to change the effective date and make that effective immediately. The reason is they got to develop an application process and all that. And the intent is particularly on a year like this, is to start to deploy these projects as quick as possible. If we wait till July 1st, we're going to miss an entire season. And so effective immediately would help get this program up and running. So that would be the other suggestion.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. All those in favor or any further discussion on it? We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of Senator Hicks or Senator Crago's motion to change section 3 to this act is effective immediately, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Amendment passes.
So, Mr. Chairman, there's only one other. We have a little bit of a conflict in the bill. If you go to page 5 and you look under subsection D, it says no forest health grant shall be approved after July 30th and any unobligated funds in the forest health grant on July 30th. But then you go back to the appropriation, and the language there says it's supposed to be part of the state forester's standard budget. So typically, if we have a standard budget item, if there's money left in the account, it just rolls over. And so it's a conflict in there. It says, well, you can't spend it, but we're going to give you another pot of money. Typically what the legislature does, they go back, if there's unexpended balance, they'll put enough money back in there to bring it up to that balance. Instead of saying you can't do projects, but we're going to give you more money. And so that's just a conflict in the bill. And so what I would suggest is, if you were interested in doing that, is you would delete the language, you delete subsection G. And then you come back into section 2 with the appropriation, and then just at the very bottom on line 17, just say any unexpended funds at the end of the fiscal period shall remain in the account.
Discussion on that suggestion from Senator Hicks.
So that would be page 6 after.
Correct.
Line
At
17.
17, just bring in another sentence after period and just say any unexpended funds at the end of the fiscal period shall remain in the account.
Is there a motion? Go ahead, Senator Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Senator, your proposal is to strike subparagraph G. So everything lines 8 through 21 on page 5 and lines 1 through 3 on page 6.
Mr. Chairman, I think you could just strike line 8 through 11
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's what.
on page 5.
Yeah. 8 through 11. Just
Page 5, 8 through 11.
that I is after G. Yeah, just.
That does not work because the
Doesn't
rest
it?
of the line,
Romanet I comes in under G.
right, and Romanet 2
Yeah.
also comes in under G.
Mhm. Yeah. See what you're saying.
It's not an.
Mr. Chairman, let me work on that as a standing committee or a committee of the whole amendment on those two, and I'll work with Senator Gregg on, we'll get that cleaned up and formatted in the right format. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate an aye vote on the bill, and we'll bring this out as a committee of the whole amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Hicks. I think that's a good idea. Just bringing a committee of the whole, have more time to think about those amendments. All right, committee.
Move the bill.
It's been moved by Senator McEwen, second by Senator Pearson. Discussion on the bill. Go ahead and proceed to vote. Take roll call. Clayton?
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 78 as amended. Senator Craig,
Aye.
Senator Love,
Aye.
Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Senator Pearson,
Aye.
Chairman Ide.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 5 ayes.
Okay, committee, we've got another bill. We've got to be, do you want to go ahead and get started on it? And if we don't finish it, we could finish it Thursday. Does that work for you? Let's go ahead. Go ahead. Mr.
Morning,
Mead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jason Mead.
I
Director.
guess I should, excuse me 1 second here, just so the audience knows. We're going to be discussing House Bill 87 Omnibus Water Bill Planning. Go ahead, Mr. Mead.
Okay, so no different than the Omnibus Construction Bill. This bill appropriates funding for projects through the Water Development account, which is of course funded through the mineral severance taxes, and then provides a spending authority for the Water Development Commission to complete those studies. We've gone through a very thorough process to get to where we are now from the application timeframe of March 1st. We have our office work with those sponsors that submit those applications to understand what their needs are. We then put together recommendations, bring those to the commission at our May meeting, commission and select water committee for review. If those are approved, we put together scopes of work. We go through a competitive consultant selection process, come up with competitive bids and budgets for those. And then we consider these studies along with our construction projects in the Omnibus Construction Bill at the November meeting jointly. We then have put those into a draft omnibus bill, and they're considered separately again by the commission and the select water committee at our January meetings. And then of course, the select water committee sponsors this bill within the legislature. So again, this is a resource no different than the construction bill and notebook that we have. I won't go through it again. Starting on tab C and there on out are all the recommendations that were provided to the Water Development Commission and Select Water Committee when we looked at these with the project sponsors at those meetings to answer questions. So with that, I'm going to jump to the bill itself, which is about 3 pages into your notebook. Give you a chance to find that real quick. So just like any bill, we start with an introduction. Moving on to page 2, this is a short bill, so I'm just going to run through the bill quickly. We discuss which account the funding is going to be coming from to be appropriated through the commission. At the bottom of page 2, we have the projects or studies that would come out of the new development Account 1, which are our reconnaissance level studies. We have 8 master plans and UW water research projects. Master plan, just since we have so many of them for municipality, is what we look at the entire drinking water system of a municipality or a water district or improvement service district to understand really where the bottlenecks are, where the growth might be. We look at projections for population 30 to 50 years out to understand that, run models to understand, where the low pressure areas might be, and really come up with a prioritized list or a roadmap into the future to either modernize their system or keep it viable for future projections of population growth. Moving into, so the total for that first section is $2,186,997 there at the bottom of page 2. Moving on to page 3, this is our level 2 studies under account 1, new development. Again, this paragraph just helps you understand which account those funds are coming from, provides a reversion date. We put a 3-year reversion date on all of our planning studies. At the bottom of page 3 is the one project, the level 2 feasibility study for Bedford and Turnerville regional supply for a total of $327,000. Moving on to page 4, now we're moving into our account 2 rehabilitation program. Again, level 1 studies. At the bottom of that page, we have one master plan for the Shoshone Irrigation District for the amount of $470,000. Then moving on to page 5, we have, again, under our account 2 rehabilitation program, our level 2 feasibility studies. We've got 2 level 2 studies there, the Casper Alcova Irrigation District lateral rehab, and then the Wheatland source and transmission evaluation study for a total of $528,000. Moving on to page 6, section 5. So I mentioned water research projects and program. Starting on line 1 there, this is an appropriation of $175,000 to the Office of Water Programs. This is the program that oversees the water research projects, solicits topics from different agencies, and make sure those projects get done. So this is a biennial appropriation for that budget. So for 2 years, 25 or 26, ending in June of 28. And then the last section of the bill, starting on line 12 of page 6, this is where we have one amendment. This spills on to page 7 and eventually page 8. This is for the Nowood River Storage Alkali Creek project. We're asking for a little bit of additional time and some additional funding to hopefully get that project over the finish line. So in a consideration of time, I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Questions from the committee? Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I noticed on page 2 of this bill, there was a Kimmer Diamond bill that was in there at one time. Is that project completed, or? I just noticed that there's no dollar amount on that one, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, the name of the project itself is Kemmerer Diamondville Water Master Plan. So it runs onto the second line. So then it says Lincoln County, $292,000.
Okay.
Okay.
And then
Go ahead, Senator.
I just have a question on the extension on the alkali. So is this gonna occur every year where we're gonna just keep asking for another extension, another extension, another extension? Or is there any way to say there isn't gonna be any more extensions on this project? Just a question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson. So admittedly, this project has been going on for years, from the time frame of when landowners over there in the valley were trying to deal with drought and understanding how can we make ourselves more drought resilient, to then going through hydrologic models and our feasibility studies to understand where are shortages, where is available water, considering a present day water right. Then going through a wealth of alternatives of storage sites throughout the Nowood River Basin to understand what's going to be the best location. You have to consider NEPA and permitting and what's going to be the most permittable site. So eventually we landed on the Alkali Creek Reservoir site. We went through NEPA. We received permits from the BLM, the Corps of Engineers, DEQ, so all the permits in place. Started into the design of the project. We typically only go to 50%. So then we understand exactly what temporary and permanent construction easements we need. Reach back out to those landowners to try to get those easements in place. And again, it's been several years since we've been working with those landowners. This is a very regulated when it comes to water area. I believe 23 out of the last 26 years, they've gone into regulation over there. So getting some storage in that area is going to be beneficial. Not all the landowners that the project needs easements through see the direct benefits. They're not directly below the reservoir. So we took a step back after initial negotiations between the district and these landowners. We went through some mediation through the Department of Ag to try to get everybody at the table and working together. And then actually the legislators from the Select Water Committee got involved and had discussions with those folks up there too. And I think we have a good path forward. We're looking at projects now that we can integrate into the reservoir project because we have these landowners that don't necessarily see the direct benefit, but they see the impact of an enlarged ditch or this or that to supply water to the reservoir. So these, I'll call them mitigation projects that we've been working on with the commission and the Select Water Committee would not only stand to benefit these local irrigators' operations, but more of a watershed scale to improve water quality, potentially the yield of the reservoir, and just overall the health of the watershed. So I think we have a good path forward. We're going to be meeting with the Select Water Committee again here before the end of the session to discuss this further. And then going back with these landowners. We've had the discussions back in the fall with those landowners that we need easements from and talked through this kind of what we call integrated watershed approach. Everybody's on board as long as we can work out the details to be able to sign option agreements. Now we're working through those details to understand where can we leverage some federal funding for those projects, where were we going to have to tie in money from the state into the reservoir project to fund those, and what kind of skin in the game are these landowners going to need. So finally, to the answer to your question, I apologize for the long-windedness, but we're asking in the construction bill for basically a 1-year time extension. What we're asking for here is if those all proceed forward that we're hopeful with, then there will need to be some design work done on those mitigation projects and then to finish the design of the dam. So that takes us into 2027. Assuming all that works out, this will be the last extension. There probably will need to be some additional funding for construction that's appropriated, and then to get through bidding and construction several years out. So if we don't get the ball over the finish line as far as easements, then yes, this would be the last amendment. Assuming we're successful in all that, then we would move forward with bidding and construction and completing the actual reservoir site itself and some of these mitigation projects.
I'd like to follow up on that too. Maybe or the committee knows, the appetite is withering on the alkali extensions, as Senator Pearson mentioned. Does anybody remember where we ended up? Because that discussion we had on the floor up there as far as alkali in particular on extending that, and I know we did extend it. Yeah, that's what I kind of thought. Is that your recollection as well?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
yes, the
Okay.
appropriation for construction was extended from a reversion date of July 1st of this year, 2026, to July 1st of 2027. The thought being then that, assuming this all moves forward favorably and we can get these easements in place, we would finish the design work for the dam as well as these mitigation projects, understand the entire cost of the whole package, and then bring that back next legislative session to ask for that difference between the 59 million that's currently appropriated and that you extended the time on, and then add any additional funds and extend that time so then we can complete the construction of the project.
Okay. So I guess it blends well with what we've already done, this extension here.
Yeah.
Committee or testimony, is there others in the audience? Thank you, Director. I guess if anybody has any specific questions, we have about 5 minutes here before we need to leave, but yeah, Senator Pearson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that $1.5 million that you're wanting added to this, is that to Is that money going to be used to kind of incentivize these landowners that are resisting or put in projects that they're requesting or to get them to kind of be favorable to this project? I'm wondering why there is a $1.5 million increase and what that money specifically is going to be used for. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, again, it gets back to these mitigation type projects that we've been discussing with the landowners and the commission and the select water committee. And to finish designing or actually design those individual projects, that's mainly what this project or this additional funding is for. And then it's just time to finish the negotiations with the landowners. It's actually with the consulting engineer that's been hired to complete this work. So it would go into their contract to finish that. And if we don't need it all, then that would get reverted.
Thank you.
Questions, committee? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else want to testify here? Anybody online? All right, committee, do you want to go ahead and move the bill and discuss it and vote?
Move the bill.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Go ahead and vote. Clayton, take roll call.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 87. Senator Grego,
Aye.
Senator Love,
Aye.
Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Senator Pearson.
Aye.
Chairman Ide.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 5 ayes.
All right, committee. Is there motion to adjourn? So moved. Seconded. We're adjourned. All right.
You don't have to have to adjourn.
But you can if you want to.
Yes, you can.
It feels kind of nice to make it official, I guess. Yeah. We finished our business.
I
But
don't
yeah,
ever did.
don't you? I never even paid attention.
We're done.